Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Hills, our live event, in which the Bone Biter is added to the game. So let's get into that. As far as the Bone Biter himself, he's going to be coming in with a lot of red-blue arcanes. If you've been wanting to stock up on these, this would be the time to do so, as these an epic, and it'll be the cheapest these things ever are at basically 200 glory each, due to epics costing 400 but giving 2 each time, so a little bit cheaper than you would normally be able to get the arcane. As far as the troop itself, pretty lackluster. It's a hard undead counter. However, undeads are really underwhelming in the current state of the game and pretty much always have been. And yeah, you're not really going to be able to use this much. It gets to deal damage to an enemy. If they're an undead, it gets to do double damage as well as a 50% chance to devour them. And then on top of all that, it also gains 5 life at the end. There are several troops that are kind of similar to this as far as giants are concerned. Other than Gob Trumper, pretty much none of them are really used that often. And maybe, I guess, maybe Elf Eater occasionally, if you're up against like an Orb Weaver team that's using a lot of them. But more often than not, you don't really tend to touch these troops, these giants that are set up like this. They can, of course, all be half percented with Giant or with Titan hero class. Titan will all end up giving all giants 50% mana start, so all of them do have the capability of doing that. But other than that, he has pretty standard traits that one of these would have. He gets to do double damage against the thing that he counters, in this case undead. He has the big, just gain a little bit extra life, and he gets to get a little bit of extra attack whenever he gets hit. Overall, pretty average troop that is so situational that you're probably never really going to be using him. So you'd get him mostly just for his trait stone and for kingdom leveling, and that's about it. Don't forget, they have changed the resources or the location of where Spoils of War is. It is now under resources, so make sure to buy your 10 Spoils of War for him over there, as they did change the location. It's still in the game, just a little bit kind of hidden compared to it was. But yeah, Stormheim does end up reaching 18-star Kingdom this week due to the new troop that ended up coming out, which is pretty nice. Don't forget to go check your mail in order to go get all of your medals of seasons from last week. Of course, all the medals from last week from the World Lore event now gets converted to all the seasons. So if you haven't already gotten those, or if you just need more of them to go upgrade, you'll have all of those, and you can simply use them to upgrade troops, or simply set 2 or 3 seasons to use for various battles, as it is a pretty good medal that ends up giving you 4 to basically all stats except magic. Other than that, as far as some things that we have going on this week for extra bonuses, we got 10% to all elementals as well as 10% to all giants. This is really favorable to Stormheim, as most things in that kingdom are both, giving a full 20% bonus, which is pretty nice. And other than that, if you want to use Bone Biter and a little bit of PvP just for some quick kill 1 trophies, you can kind of plop them in and just get 5 additional glory. It's not as good as if you were to farm glory during a vault event, which we just had, but it's your next best bet. And we won't be getting a vault event for a while, given that one just ended. So if you need another way to gain glory and you didn't get enough during a vault event, this would probably be a good way to do so. And just kind of spam 1 trophy PvP and just keep cycling through really quick battles that will instantly kill, and just have him as a 4th random troop on your team that does basically nothing, simply just to gain the 5 additional glory. So you can end up farming out that a little bit. As far as chests, of course, it is Stormheim troops, as it ends up mentioning there, as far as everything that's within the event queue drop table. As far as what is available, if we go over here to the Kingdom of Stormheim, here are all the things within the event key drop table, with the only exceptions being all of the 4 Frostfire Keep troops, and I believe that is it. Why do I feel like there's one other? Oh, and Penguin. All of them except for Penguin and the 4 Frostfire troops are all within the drop table. As far as opening event keys, it's probably one that's worth skipping as far as weeks are concerned. The mythic for this kingdom is 2 of them. It's Mistralis and Jotnar Storm Shield. The problem is Jotnar Storm Shield is so bad, I'm not sure if it's even worth using event keys to try to get Mistralis. Mistralis is a decent mythic, however, it's not used so much that I would really go out of your way for. It gets to deal splash damage 1 to 4. I find it to have a really high inconsistency, and while it can be pretty good with the fact that it's one of only 2 mythics that has an extra turn on it, I do feel like its abilities is a little bit too random to get it to fully utilize every single time you want to use it. But it does have an enchant on it. It is the best enchanter in the game, and there are some team synergies that specifically end up using that. But overall, I would say probably a week that's worth skipping. Maybe you could do it up until a point you have a Valkyrie if you're early enough in the game that you don't have a Valkyrie. And that's pretty much it. Jotnar is probably worth skipping over. He's just a thing that creates a bunch of red and yellow, and anything that has a double gem spawn like that tends to not be as good, at least at that small of an amount. And the only other thing that's kind of okay is, where'd she go? Hyndla. Hyndla has a pretty big bonus for giants, which works pretty good with Titan hero class. However, her ability itself is rather average and doesn't really get to do much in most teams, unless you're really building a heavy giant team. A lot of stuff in this kingdom does not really get used that often, and the only other really good utility troop from this kingdom is obtainable simply by throwing Chaos Shards at Frostfarer Keep, and that is the Frostfarer King, which is theoretically actually better than Queen Mab in the current state of the game. It's basically gets the same thing as Queen Mab with the freeze, but also gets a burn for free on top of that, while having a better ability that doesn't get hard countered by a bunch of immunities. So overall, pretty nice troop. But you don't get it from event keys. You can simply get it through Chaos Shards. So overall, oddly enough, even though this has the best hero class in the game, the Kingdom, I would say it's probably worth actually skipping on event keys, as we do have a pretty good event key week, 2 weeks from now actually, that you might want to go and end up saving them for, where we're going to be getting a new legend, but more on that later. Anyways, as far as guild-related events, of course we got ourselves Tower of Doom. You have to build Pure Blue as far as the newer weapon that we ended up getting. Apparently we have to go over here. It is the tiered of weapons that is actually the second best. It is worth potentially considering upgrading. I'm personally not. But there are 2 types of weapons that are worth upgrading. The one that has highest priority are the ones that do full AoE damage and convert into Doom Skulls, as far as Doom weapons are concerned. However, the second best, as of this current moment in time, are these Doomed Hammer kind of things. All these ones that hit a damage and then do the really heavy splash thing. These are pretty decent to upgrade. I personally haven't upgraded a single one of them, as I'm kind of holding out to see what the next weapon type might be after these Doom weapons. But as it currently stands, it is the second best typing of Doom weapon, so potentially worth considering upgrading. I personally will not be, but it's definitely worth the consideration if nothing else. And you still probably want to get it for completionist sake, as it might be a little bit annoying to get it in the future. And all you'd have to do is buy it at tier 4, which I believe is exactly 500 gems if you want to do so. You can also buy it through material in the Soulforge. However, it probably comes out cheaper just simply paying the gems for it. Plus, you'll be able to help out your guild with the Tower of Doom event. And of course, as far as Tower of Doom event, you just basically take all the rooms that are more favorable. Things like the power, the fireballs, the heroisms, the ones that end up giving you 1 extra sigil, and the powers. The powers end up giving you extra stats to your boons, and those boons then give you extra bonuses that your entire guild will be able to go and utilize throughout the entirety of the event. Anyways, other than that, let's go over some weekly stuff that we have going on, and then we'll go over some teams. So, this Tuesday, we have ourselves Primal Rift. We'll have that if you need to get the Purification done. It is actually one of the easier places to get it done at, and with potion effects, it should pretty much be a breeze. Has a really good summoner there. The Legend from the Kingdom is pretty much auto-win. It can still be difficult without potion effects, but it can pretty easily be done with it. Probably actually one of the easier factions in the game. Other than that, on Wednesday, we will be getting a giant bonus pet. If I'm not mistaken, this is somewhat recent, so we'll be able to get a little bit more upgrades on that. And Thursday, we have the best hero class in the game. Titan hero class, very well rounded, has barrier on brown, has the potential of enraging, has a bunch of explosions. Overall, gets to serve pretty much any role you would ever need. You have really high skull damage potentially that you could use on it. You have really high durability to not die off of. You have really good mana accumulation and rushing your mana. It pretty much covers all your bases, and you kind of tweak it depending on how you need to use it. Really good all around hero class. Definitely worth considering leveling if you haven't already. And Friday, we actually have no event. We have not a single event this weekend. I believe it was mostly because we're supposed to be getting a new hero class, but of course we're not getting any new hero classes anymore. So the event's kind of empty. We will, however, be getting a new pet on Saturday. Well, I shouldn't say a new pet, but it's new to most people. We're getting the 2018 Independence Day pet, which is some eagle-looking thing. But yeah, we're getting an eagle pet from 2018 from Independence Day, which was from July 4th thing. And it was one of the very first ones that was ever added as far as like these exclusive like cosmetic pets. So a lot of people might still not have it, as that was almost 2 years ago when it ended up getting released. So yeah, quite a few people probably still missing it. So for a lot of people, the pet this Saturday will probably be new. But other than that, we don't have anything going on this weekend other than that pet coming back. And if nothing else, you can get more copies of it, because very few people, if anyone, really has it maxed. Anyways, other than that, Soulforge. We do have a couple things that are worth going for. The most noteworthy one in the current state of the game is probably Phoenicia. Phoenicia, I feel like, just increasingly becomes better as more magic comes into the game. And of course, now that we can buy even more deeds off of things like that gem offer every single day, or even writs that go into deeds, that go into purple, that go into magic, she just keeps getting stronger and stronger. Because similar to Rowanne, as more armor comes into the game, Phoenicia is kind of the same way, but with magic. As more magic comes into the game, she becomes quite exponentially stronger compared to quite a few other options in the game. She has a full AoE that gets to double damage based on burning, and this gets used a lot for quick kills. It actually has a quick kill range slightly above that of Rowanne, and it ends up covering a lot of ground because of that, especially as their stats become further apart with more magic, and it gets the same amount of scaling too, because similar to how Rowanne gets 2 damage per extra armor, this also gains 2 damage per extra magic that exists within the game. So they both scale in a kind of similar way overall, and it also gets scaling based on how many reds are on the board, as well as how many burning enemies, though you mostly get it off the reds. And in combination, you can normally hit for very, very, very high AoEs. She's actually the highest single cast AoE troop in the entire game, and sometimes she's even used for double cast, as long as you're using a composition that can get her pretty quick. And of course, she's always used with the red storm, as the red storm is required. You can normally just do it with a single red storm for the first 4 turns, if you're going for a one-shot quick kill. However, you pretty much have to use her with Sun Spirit if you're planning on doing a battle that will last longer than 4 turns. But yeah, overall, pretty good Mythic. You don't even need her traded either. All of her value pretty much just comes from her ability itself, so pretty nice Mythic to pick up. Other than that, the other one that's worth considering is Infernus. Infernus is a pretty good all-around troop. Has a bunch of board clear, has a bunch of consistent damage, has some mana accumulation in there, has the best burn in the game, and gets to start, or I mean, gets to summon a Firestorm when an enemy dies. So overall, pretty well-rounded. One of the better kind of average Mythics in the game. It's actually way above average earlier on in the game if you're a lower level player. A great damage source to have. It does fall off a little bit later in the game. However, it is ultimately still the best burning option in the entire game, and it will probably remain so for forever, due to the fact that being able to burn off a single extra turn is very powerful. And obviously that's a lot more effective earlier on in the game, but it still does scale well with like hero classes that do triple damage on burning, and even like stuff like Elamagrim into later in the game. But those are pretty much the only 2 Mythics really worth considering this week, or even Soulforge troops in general. Other than that, we have 2 weapons over here, Ice Aegis, which is useless, and of course Doomed Hammer if you're deciding to craft it rather than getting it through the event, or you could just completely ignore it if you want. Yeah, those are the only 2. Nothing really too noteworthy in weapons this week. You could pretty much just ignore all of them, but I do advise getting the Doomed Hammer through the event through 500 gems, as that would be the better value, plus you'll be able to help your guild get the event done. Anyways, let's just go over some teams real quick. So, as far as teams that you'll be able to use throughout this week, for Tower of Doom, we have 2 right up front. This one's the super cheap team. This uses Shield of Urskaya. You get this from 250 wins from the Sentinel Hero class. Sentinel Hero class you get from the Kingdom of Urskaya. You can also do this with Mountain Crusher if you have the lower level range. However, as you get deeper and deeper, you will want to switch into Shield of Urskaya. You cast Shield of Urskaya onto Rowanne. Rowanne gets a massive armor boost ratio. That'll be able to convert all that armor into damage. Templar is used to gain additional armor, as well as to deny the red that you don't need, as well as generating red for both your Rowanne and Apothecary. Apothecary feeds both your shield and your Templar, and it also gets a cleanse, so you don't even need to worry about running any kind of Orpheuses to go get your cleanse. You can simply just cast your Apothecary, and you won't have to deal with any kind of annoying stats effects. The most annoying one, probably in Tower of Doom, being Deathmark. All the Dooms do have a capability of Deathmarking you, and be able to cleanse these off will make sure you just don't randomly die. So it's a nice little safety precaution. One other thing that you can do to kind of protect yourself from that is Barrier will block the instance of Deathmark if it was to trigger on you. However, if a Deathmark triggers on you and tries to kill you while you have Barrier, while it won't kill you and it will just remove your Barrier instead, the Deathmark will still stay on you. So you'll still need a way to cleanse it off, and that's what Apothecary is for. And ends up working out pretty well. And yeah, you just run that. Everything on the teams are really cheap. Only a rare and ultra rare. Rowanne you get for free from completing a Fars of Thorns, and Mountain Crusher you get automatically just from like level 100 something, as you get your Brown Mastery to 20 something or 30 something, and then Shield of Urskaya, once you upgrade into that a little bit later on in the battles, once you get to a higher level, is simply from, as I mentioned, 250 wins on Sentinel Hero class. Anyways, next up, a little bit more of an expensive team, however still uses no mythics, and that is Jar of Eyes, Double Tesla into Astral Spirit. This is obviously a true damage kind of build. You can also go with Mountain Crusher instead if you don't have Jar of Eyes, but I figured it's a little bit better with Jar of Eyes for the main reason that it actually has a Blue Storm on it. Gets to create an Ice Storm, and Ice Storm, of course, is Blue Storm. And this is pretty useful, given that your entire team is going to be using blue. So you'll be able to generate more blue. You'll also be able to get a +2 red into Tesla. The reason for running a +2 red instead of a +2 blue, even though our entire team uses blue, is mostly because she will initially be blocked on blue, assuming you're using Jar of Eyes and not Mountain Crusher. And for this reason, this actually ends up helping out quite a bit, because you can end up 2-turning her mana off of red then. Since if you try taking blue and try 2-turning it, you won't be able to, because Jar of Eyes is blocking it. But Tesla gets pretty good boost ratio. She gets a boost based on all the armor in battle, and this is pretty noteworthy because that is all the battle, all the armor in the battle, not just your own. So it doesn't get to scale off the enemy, and obviously as you get deeper, the enemy will have much higher stats than you, and this helps you basically to keep up with the amount of stats that they have. And double Tesla is just to be able to double cast, especially if you have enchant off the potion effect. You'll be able to get up the blocked one pretty easily just by turns going by. And other than that, Astral Spirit's pretty much just here for the board control. She does also have some true damage synergy, so she won't be hitting directly on armor, and this is good because hitting on armor would end up reducing the amount of damage your Tesla does. So it'll be able to still hit them for some damage, do some board control, while not affecting the amount of damage your Tesla will be able to do within the battles. And of course, the main nice benefit of it, no Mythix. Other than that, faction. So this is for Primal Rift for tomorrow, for Tuesday. A couple different teams. Of course, Rowanne, still really good. This is kind of same premise. For the really low levels, you can run Mountain Crusher. However, for the little bit higher, like 80, 90, 100, you might need an Urskaya shield, depending on what your stats are, in order to feed your Rowanne armor and then just kill it out. And you just run double Leprechaun. That not only gives you a little bit of gold, but it also gets your mana up very quickly. It also has +1 green, which ends up helping in feeding your Rowanne a bit quicker. And ends up working out pretty nicely. Other than that, if we're going to go really deep, we can end up going with a Mang build. I feel like I always run Mang for Primal Rift. Kind of weird, but it just seems like one of the delves that kind of needs it, even though there is a Reflect troop. But you can simply use Barrier on Brown of Titan in order to kind of negate yourself of that Reflect, as there is a troop that has 25% Reflect that you do have to be a little bit careful with that is within this delve. So if you hit yourself with too much damage, you got to be careful. But as long as you have Barrier while you hit it, or if they hit on you while you have the stun on Titan, ends up getting stunned whenever it gets hit by Skull. If they have stun, that 25% Reflect will, of course, be removed. But ends up working out pretty good. You have Apothecary for mana accumulation. Leprechaun actually gives +1 green, so you have the +1 you need for your Apothecary. Generally, anything that's a 10 mana cost, particularly one that's a mana generator, needs to have a +1 on one of its colors. And in this case, even though our banner doesn't have it, the Leprechaun does off of its second trait. So it ends up working out pretty well. Of course, Leprechaun with Empower is used for mana accumulation. You also get some free gold, which synergizes even better with the fact that you have 25% extra gold. Not like that matters much, but hey, free gold. And if nothing else, Wild Queen here is a mythic, but it is really good mythic at that. Ever since they buffed it last year. Gets to steal a bunch of attack from an enemy, which can help make sure that they don't do as much damage to you. This gives it to your first ally, which is already going to have absurd attack because Mang gets the boost ratio based on their armor to give you attack, which will be a very high amount as you get to the later battles, and will be able to scale the entire way. And you basically just use Wild Queen in order to Skull create while also feeding green mana to your 3 core troops. And while she might not be able to get full mana off of that, you will likely fill up Apothecary, and then you can go for an Apothecary cast and get things rolling again, and pretty much just go from there. But I should end up working out pretty well. One alternative to Wild Queen, if you want to go for a cheaper option if you don't have her, is Keeper of Souls. Keeper of Souls will serve much of a similar purpose, except you don't get mana accumulation. It'll simply just be used for skulls. So to be mindful of that if you don't have a Wild Queen. And other than that, pure faction, pretty easy for this place. It's Green Golem into triple Alderfather. Alderfather can pretty much solo this entire delve. The whole premise of this team is let Green Golem die, and then he starts summoning Trents. He has a 50% chance to summon a Trent. He either gets to summon a Trent or a Green Golem. And ideally, you want to be aiming for a Trent, or Treant, however you say that. And the main reason for this is Treant gets to gain both armor and attack. This is very useful, particularly the fact that it gains attack, because you can just basically keep buffing it up over and over and over again until you can one-shot the enemy, or at least like two-shot them, or, you know, gain a lot of attack, and then to start casting Alderfather for its convert and skull spamming them down. And that's pretty much what you do for every single battle until you win. Your actual team is technically a Trant, followed by triple Alderfather. The Green Golem is just a temporary thing here. You could even theoretically put any of them here. It doesn't really matter what your first thought is, because you will ultimately be killing it out for a Trent, and with triple Alderfather behind it, you can constantly keep getting resummons while also having plenty of skull spam and some mana accumulation. But overall, one of the easier factions in the game. Not sure if I would say it's the absolute easiest, but definitely among one of the easier 5, I would say. So you might not even necessarily need potion effects, but obviously if you're doing it for a Tuesday event and going all the way through, you'll obviously be having the potion event. So if you want to get it all done then, would be a good time to consider doing so. And should be one of the easier factions overall once you finally get to the end there. But yeah, once you get that Trent there, it's pretty much auto win. And just to kind of make sure it lives. And if it doesn't, Alderfather could just replace it out and be good to go. Of course, it's only 50% chance, but you'll eventually get the resummon on it. But anyways, guys, that will pretty much wrap it up for now. Was there anything else? Oh, no, Titan class. Aha, I knew I was missing one. So, class event this Thursday. Well, of course, we'll be getting a giant pet on Wednesday, so that'll be able to help you even more for this event because you will be restricted to 2 things, specifically giants from Stormheim, and of course, all these are giants from Stormheim as far as all these, and they all have 20% bonus, with your hero having 10%, which is pretty nice. You might also notice that every single team I showed used Titan hero class. Figured why not, given that, well, for one, he's already insanely good hero class, but also because you can level him this week. But yeah, this is a pretty standard team. This used to be meta like 3 years back. It's not really that meta these days. However, it is meta for one thing, and that's for doing the Titan class events whenever they show up. And that's Yarrow Fire Mantle, Fire Giant, Dawnbringer with a Hyndla Frost Crown. If you do not have Dawnbringer, Black Manacle is likely your best bet, though you might need to change around the banner a little bit. But yeah, pretty much just use this team. Yarrow Fire Mantle into Fire Giant gets to create a lot of reds, and you just kind of get that going. And that'll ideally, if you're using a red weapon here, will feed into there, like if you're using Dawnbringer. And even if not, you can just simply keep Yarrow going. Hyndla's kind of here for resummon. Resummon is pretty important in something like this kind of event, because if you accidentally lose a troop, you want to make sure you resummon, because resummoning gives you all your points back. Otherwise, you will lose 1 point per dead troop. So having a resummon like that's pretty convenient. And it gets to give a bunch of extra life and magic to your giants, which is your entire team. You just get to keep chipping them down over and over again. That's pretty much the whole premise with that. And yeah, that's it, because we don't have any kind of event going on this weekend. But anyways, guys, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave them, and I will get to them soon. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone.